We here. EP 97. I'm Cody Carpentier, joined as always by my main man, Matty Kiwoom.
Baby.
48 hours from now, we're going to be in the same jaunt, having a good vacation, hitting up some good food spots, tapped in, dialed in. Maybe we'll do an emergency episode this weekend. Who knows what's going to happen when we get together.
A little drunk cast, a little hurdle drunk cast over the weekend. Oh, baby.
If my cords are long enough and my internet's good enough, we might just be fireside recording a little app. I don't know what's going to happen. But I will say the other side of this window is my deck that has a grill and a fire pit. And it looks like a good spot to do a podcast. We might just do it. But anyway, we're here. The Hurdle, episode 97, getting you ready for week 6. Again, hurdling you through the week until football gets here, Matty. The purpose of the show as we close in on episode 100 is to get you ready for the next week. 5 weeks down, that means the fantasy football season is a third of the way done.
I can't believe it. I cannot believe it. We've already had our first slew of bye weeks. We've already dealt with injuries. People have come back from injuries. People are about to come back from injuries. Pup guys can come off of the pup. It's crazy how far into it we already are. I like to call it the fantasy trenches. We are in the fantasy trenches.
We are. We're in the fantasy trenches now, and then Thanksgiving comes along, and Thanksgiving is the oh my gosh, my brain just went empty, but it's the back nine,
the back nine,
the abyss, the hell,
the beginning of the end.
The beginning of the end. But my analogy there began good in my head and then went sideways because I forgot what I was going to say. So that's typical for a 8 p.m. show for me at this stage of life as I age into existence.
Okay.
Fizz, what's up, brother? We appreciate you tapping in. Theo, epic fail. All the real ones in the chat on a beautiful Tuesday night. Matty. What are we starting with here? We're starting with the waiver wire.
Yeah, so we're going to change up the format of the show. We're going to do 3 segments every single week. Today, we're going to start it off with waiver wire because, our guy Eric drops the waiver wire pod, which you can get at South Harmon podcast feeds, wherever you get your podcasts. But this is kind of a banger week. So we're going to start the show with a little bit of a discussion, a topic of some of the biggest waiver claims, biggest waiver wire ads, and who's for real, who's not. So let's get into the first name here, Cody.
The first name has to be on the best team. It can't be one of these backs. It has to be the receiver that came back from the depths of borderline retirement, according to, his old friend Antonio Brown, other places. But a guy that died in New England after having a 900-yard season in Kansas City is now back in Kansas City, has yet to turn 28. He's about to turn 28 here in a month. And Juju Smith-Schuster looks like Juju Smith-Schuster. I added him in one singular league, because I had this rarely happens in life. Do you make a colossal failure and get awarded by the mistake with something? And I made the colossal failure of Thursday night. I'm in California. We're making homemade pasta. I'm tizzied up. I'm dialed, and Matty will be there. Matty will be there. He's going to get off his flight on Thursday. He's going to be like, damn, man, I forgot to set my lineup in this one league. This is what I did, right? So yes, you will. I'll get you so drunk on Saturday night when you wake up for that London game, you'll forget there's a London game. So anyway, so Thursday night last week, I'm sitting there, blah, 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 blah. All of a sudden, turn the TV on, the game's on. And again, also Pacific time, right? So it's like 4:00 and this game kicks off. And I go, oh, balls. I didn't set my lineup. So I go to check this lineup, and I got Mooney and I got London in my flex. 2 flex spots. Got them both in my flex.
Oh, no.
Which is like the cardinal rule, right? Is set your lineup, make sure your guys on Thursday are not in your flex. Mm-hmm. Right. So this roster in particular, I had Mooney, I had London, I had Bijan, and I had Koo all in this game. This roster is very, very Atlanta heavy.
Rocked.
It was a mistake while I was drafting. It's very Atlanta heavy. It's a very good team for whatever reason. It also has Nate and Rashee Rice. So again, I put London and Mooney in the flex. Friday, I go, all right, well, I got to fix this, right? I got to put somebody in my starting lineup. It looks like Rice is out for the year. It looks like Neighbors is going to miss this weekend with a concussion. I have no other receivers on my roster. So who do I go add? Juju Smith-Schuster and Jordan Whittington. 36 points. How many times do you get – normally when you're in that situation, you go, all right, here we go, 6 points. No, 36 from Juju and from Jordan Whittington. I think Juju's is obviously much more sustainable in Kansas City. I've seen people out there that have taken both sides of this, that have said this is a 1 week thing. It's not going to happen again. And I've seen people there that go, well, you know what? In this offense, when you're attached to Patrick Mahomes, this is just how it works. And the one thing I'll say is when you go back to his days in Kansas City, just a mere season and a half ago, so his last game in Kansas City was January of 2023. So literally a year and a half ago. In that season, he had multiple good games. And these are his target game. These are his targets in those games in 2022 season for Kansas City. 8, 3, 8, 8, 8, 8, 5, 12, 4, 3, 4, 11, 10, 4, 3, 2. I said 8, I said 10, I said 12 a few times there. Right? Those are good games for Juju Smith-Schuster in an offense. You mind you, 2 years ago had a healthy stroke out right there. Had a healthy, a younger Travis Kelce that was important to the offense, right? And it was a different team. It was a more explosive team at that time. And now you look at it, and he's like outside of Xavier Worthy. And I mean, we can also talk about Kareem. This is a massive conversation. Matty, like this is a Andy Reid gets his flowers moment right here. People need to realize that this ain't normal. Kareem Hunt was at home on the couch. Kareem Hunt, didn't have a spot in Cleveland. In a Cleveland backfield right now, it does not look good. Yeah. Juju Schuster didn't make the New England Patriots roster on a roster that needs wide receivers. And we just got double hundos on Monday night. What do you think of this? Like, what I want to know what your top down thoughts are. We have not talked about this at all. And my initial thoughts is simply like, it's Andy Reid, period.
It's Andy Reid, and it's the style in which this offense is operating. I don't want to say that Juju Smith-Schuster is just going to be Rashee Rice, but I'm also not going to not say that for the rest of the year. He was kind of Rashee Rice before Rashee Rice in this offense. A little bit, it's absolutely wild to say, but I mean, look at the spread: 8 targets, unbelievable. He got separation. He over 130 yards. I mean, it was a big night. He won in similar ways that Rashee Rice has been winning. When you look at Rashee, it's not like you're replacing Tyreek Hill. You're not replacing DK Metcalf. He's a middling athlete who's the new slant boy. And, there we go. It's scary to say. But in redraft leads, seasonal leads especially, he's a must-add. And a little bit of a tip here, something for the more casual leagues. If this is more your home leagues and family leagues, shit like that, you could probably get him at a bit of a discount because he's not going to be at the top of the food chain because he's on bye. So if the league doesn't particularly kind of sort the way they should, you might be able to grab him. You might be able to grab him a little bit cheaper. But Theo's in the chat asking him what percentage of fab in Dynasty. If you're a contender, I'm doing 12, 15%. I don't care. You got to chase it.
Maybe more. I mean, the guy's he's not 28 yet. He's in this offense. This offense needs weapons. I'm not saying he's a weapon, but I am
a weapon on Monday night.
This is the first time he's hit 130 yards since he was 22 years old.
I mean, listen.
It's been 5 years since this guy had 130 yards.
Yeah. I mean, it's My brain shuts off with Juju Smith-Schuster. I completely wrote him off. We had a question on Start Shit this past weekend. It was like, Juju? Hell no, Juju. Hell no. And then he just not only fits in, but like you said, he's only 27 years old. He's done it on this roster. He did it against a tough defense, and he kind of plays in a way that could I can't believe we're saying that could translate week to week. So if I'm a contender and I'm a flex needy player, maybe I just lost Rashee Rice. Like I said, 10-12%. I'm okay going that in seasonal leagues. 50. I'm pushing 15 in seasonal. Let's chase it, because a month from now, let's say he has 2 more good weeks. Not saying 130 yards, but let's call it 8 for 80, 7 for 60. You're like, damn, I should have. What's fab if we have a guy in this role on this team? So for me, time's a flat circle. I don't really know much else to say with Juju.
Well, Justin Watson's the other guy in this offense that ran 2 more routes than he did. And he has the most similar skill set, and he had no targets on more routes.
Well, Justin Watson is so good at sprinting all season to get a ring. That's what he's done his whole career. We've had opportunity after opportunity for him to get in, get a role. No, he'll have one game where he scores a touchdown. He'll have one game where he has 70 total receiving yards, and that's it. He ain't filling in this role. And the thing about the Juju fit with the Chiefs, I saw this front and center with the Patriots when they were humming. They just are able to work magic on players, especially players with familiarity with the offense. So, like I said, I hate to say it, but Juju's back. He back, Cody. He back.
So we're spending the fab on him. In seasonal leagues, I'm north of 15%, closing on 20%. For Juju in seasonal leagues. I mean, he's a 1-for-1 replacement right here for what Rashi's doing. Rashi's done. So
no, we're not extrapolating here. This was not 4 for 50 and it looked like it could work. No, he just did what Rashi would have done. Rashi wouldn't have gone for 200 in this game. Rashi would have went for exactly what he did. That's the craziest part about this. And you can him and ha and bitch and moan and try to not believe it, but 8 targets, 7 catches, 130 yards is the game Rice would have had in this. It's not like he would have made this a whole lot bigger. He would have done this. And boom, he's in there. Wild.
Speaking of not doing something in 5 years, Kareem Hunt did something he hasn't done in 7 years, dating back to his rookie season. He's had 1 game with 20 or more carries. In 2020, he had 20 carries, 72 yards as a Brown against the Colts, 20 carries, period. He's never had a game with more than that since 2018. He had 22 carries in 2018. And then his 6 best games as far as total carries, 2017, 22, 24, 25, 29, 29. He just had 27 against the Saints on Monday Night Football. Kareem Hunt is not available in less than 55% of leagues. He's owned in more than 55% of leagues right now, so he's not exactly in a waiver focus now, but he did do something he hasn't done in a long-ass time and look good doing it.
We're not going to really talk about Kareem Hunt in the sense of waivers, but I will talk about it in Dynasty being a problem for Isaiah Pacheco. And I don't mean this directly. I don't mean he is going to make Isaiah Pacheco irrelevant in this offense. I'm just simply saying that if they bring in a guy that they like in this super deep 2025 class in the 3rd round, Pacheco's job is no longer ironclad. I can't imagine they give him an extension when Carson Steele had a good game. Kareem Hunt off the sideline had a good game. I mean, off the couch had a good game. Isaiah Pacheco himself is a 7th rounder. So are we just seeing an offense and a quarterback and an offensive line that is able to create any running back, make any running back good? I can't imagine this is good for Isaiah Pacheco getting an extension with the Chiefs. So kind of big picture stuff, meta stuff. I don't mean to bring the doomsday device down on everyone's dynasty heads, but man, if anyone could do it in this offense, why would they pay and make sure Isaiah Pacheco sticks around?
And this is why it made so much sense for them to not take Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the first round. But once they did realize they messed up, the next year they go back, double down, they don't double down, they do the inverse of double down, and they take Pacheco in the 7th round. And they realize you don't need to do. And then they go and take Deneric Prince, and then they go and get Carson Steele, and then now they add Samaje Perine after camp, and now they get Kareem Hunt in the middle of the season. Like, it's proving the fact of the matter that, you know, I will give Matt Kelly credit for this. Like, he's been one since day one of me getting in the space saying running backs do not matter as far as draft capital goes. Yes, you have guys like Saquon and Bijan, but even Saquon and Bijan right now, I know Saquon's on bye this week and he's been fantastic, but Bijan, he's been underwhelming to this point, and it doesn't always matter. And I'm not even talking about, like, I guess technically I'm talking about fantasy here, but in the context of NFL, like what Kareem Hunt just did for you in that game on Monday night was worth more than anything Bijan's done to this point this season for the Falcons. Tyler Allgeier's looked better technically in certain spurts than Bijan has this year. Like, you could have just rolled with Tyler Allgeier. It's proving the fact that these guys don't, like, yes, they matter, but in totality of roster and team building in the NFL, running backs have zero true value in draft capital. And Kareem Hunt's proven that to you at 29 years old, and Pacheco and Carson and all, so on and so forth. But again, like you said, we're not here to talk about Kareem Hunt. We're here to talk about waiver wire. Waiver wire this week. Everybody knows about Braylon Allen. I would bet money Braylon Allen's going to be cut in a few leagues tonight when waivers do clear because of how inefficient that offense looks. And now Robert Saleh is fired. Not that he has anything to do with the offense or their struggles to this point this year. He just may be in a little bit of a tizzy fight with Aaron Rodgers. But I will say the running back position, Tank Bigsby or Tyrone Tracy.
I'm going with Tyrone Tracy because I still believe in Travis Etienne. I know a lot of people want to shoot him to the sun. I believe that was actually something that Mike said in the Discord. I'm not ready to do so. I mean, maybe I'm just a bobo. I just still believe that Etienne still has some left in the tank. And when your coach goes out of his way to poo-poo your performance, I just don't know if that's going to be a role change anytime soon, where Singletary to Tracy is just a clear upgrade. One guy is just familiar with the executive team, has been with Dayball dating back to Buffalo, but one guy is a better player, and we saw that with Tyrone Tracy. I don't know if Bigsby is unequivocally the better player when Travis Etienne is healthy. Having said that, I'm still putting in some money to get me some Tank Bigsby where I can. Dynasty, he's not a waiver ad. In Dynasty leagues, he's been held onto. He's been taxi squatted. He's not available readily in Dynasty, but in seasonal, he's under 10% roster on ESPN. I will be using my waiver claim on him. I will be putting 25% fab in on him in seasonal, because if the shoulder ailment becomes a shoulder injury for Travis Etienne, well then Tank Bigsby becomes a potential league winner here at this point, given how ferocious and how good he's running with this team.
Are you cutting Trey Sermon?
No, I'll hold Trey Sermon as long as Jonathan Taylor is banged up. We had this exact same crossroads in 2023 with Zach Moss. Is he going to stick around? He can't keep doing this. He's not that good. He didn't do it in Buffalo. Cut to one of the hottest seasonal waiver deadline trade acquisitions for contenders in seasonal. I'm not going to make the same mistake this year. As long as Jonathan Taylor's limited, dealing with an ankle thing, I'm going to keep Trey Sermon around. If he comes back, practices in full as early as tomorrow, later Sermon. I'll cut bait in seasonal.
That's fair. Wide receiver, who else we got here? We got, of course, Darnell Mooney, who's a guy we like to draft in the later part of the 14th, 15th round this year. Heavily targeted, top 20 in receiving yards right now in the NFL. Anybody else here at the wide receiver or running back position that you're making a focal point on?
I'm going to talk about Darnell Mooney when we get to our awards. So I'm not going to really dive into him and talk about him. But I do want to bring up one more running back, Roschon Johnson. Roschon Johnson still widely available. I know the hype, the excitement is around DeAndre Swift and his back-to-back over 100 yards from scrimmage season. Like, he's been awesome. But now we look at Roschon and quietly have to realize he has more total touchdowns this season than he did all of last year with 15 games played. He's being used as a goal line back. And if there was an injury to DeAndre Swift, who has had his fair share, may I add, Roschon can become a absolute bell cow in this backfield. Khalil Herbert has become an afterthought. Would he become active and probably utilized if there were an injury? For sure. But it's hard to put the cat back in the bag. And the thing about Roschon that we've always been able to count on, and it's probably the reason why I shouldn't have completely given up like I had on him in Dynasty, was his temperament, his intangibles, the thing that he has above his shoulders, what he brings to the table. I mean, what was it, a month after the Bears drafted him, after the 23 draft, that they were talking about the person that he was, the presence that he was, the difference maker that he was on and off the field. So that's going to keep you around. That's going to keep you in the coach's good graces. And this is what leads to an opportunity like this. Khalil Herbert gets stopped 4-1 on the goal line 1 week. Bada bing, bada boom. Roschon Johnson's now the goal line back. And if you have the depth on your bench to be able to stash a running back, like I've been in a lot of my season leagues, I've been stashing Jalen Wright in this spot, so I don't have a whole lot of room. But if you didn't stash him, you missed out on Trey Sermon, you didn't pick up Chase Brown, and you're just kind of churning through your Trey Bensons, your Blake Corums, these types of running backs in seasonal, it's time to make the pivot. Grab Roschon, put him on your bench, because even in bye weeks, you'll take a guy who falls in the end zone, gets you 8 to 10 fantasy points, and when the real bye weeks are coming. So Roschon's another ad for me.
I like Roschon. I think this, I mean, it's kind of, obviously I like Roschon. It's kind of gone underreported. It feels like that he's like pretty like buried Khalil Herbert, which is something that I guess technically isn't, like a year ago, that was the big thing, right? It was like, well, Herbert's in his way. Well, not Herbert, not DeAndre Swift last year. Gosh, my brain is.
Deontay Foreman was in his way.
Deontay Foreman was the other donkey that was there. And Roschon wasn't healthy. And now they bring in Swift, they pay Swift. Roschon getting the goal line thing is inside the 5. He's had 4 carries inside the 5 this year.
That's really only in 2 games. Like, he wasn't getting any burn the first 2 or 3 games of the season.
Even week 3, Khalil Herbert had 3 carries inside the 5 out of 8 total snaps. And then last week he had 3 total snaps, none inside the 5. Roschon had 2 carries inside the 5. Swift even had 4. Swift was RB2 on the week. He was RB3 the week before that. But Roschon's been a consistent top 32 guy. He's been RB32 or better each of the last 3 weeks. They haven't been prolific, but the snaps are going up, the carries are going up, the routes are going up, the opportunities are going up. I'd like to see him, put some targets back in that bucket, but that doesn't happen all the time. But I do think as far as this running back landscape goes, I like the crop that we're kind of looking at here. Jalen Wright got opportunities.
Yeah.
The Justice Hill thing was kind of underwhelming, especially in a shootout game as far as expectation goes. Antonio Gibson, that was, again, interesting. What was that?
I thought you were playing a video or something.
That was a waiver wire right there. That was a waiver wire running back right there.
Tiger makes his first appearance on the pod in a long time. Say with the ball, go Tiger!
I didn't know that there was volume on that thing. I didn't know there's volume.
That's awesome. Shout out T.
That's kind of lame. I was gonna say, do you think that running back right there has a little more opportunity than?
I don't know if he's gonna have the opportunity, but that man will punch it in from the 1. I'll tell you that.
By the way, that's a 210-pound running back in 9th grade, right
Joe
there.
Alt. That's mini Joe Alt carrying the ball.
Playing running back. Anyway, I thought that was kind of funny. I thought I'd weave that into and I wasn't sure how I was going to weave that in, but we tried it. What about Tucker Kraft at tight end? Is this just like your last opportunity right here to get Kraft? Did you see the mic'd up section with Tucker Kraft this weekend?
I did not see the mic'd up. I heard he is a psycho. I saw the clip on AJ Dillon's podcast about burning childhood homes or whatever nonsense he spews when he's talking shit. But I think a lot of people already missed the boat. I know in a lot of 12-team seasonal formats, he had already been picked up last week to fill in for some of the buys. You know, your Dallas Goedert, who was hot, he was on bye. Sam Laporta was on bye last week. So there were a number of tight ends on bye. So he was pretty picked up last week, but if he's out there, yeah, of course you're going for broke. He seems like the tight end that they are going to settle on in this offense. Musgrove is an afterthought, and now we've seen it when Mark Andrews surpassed what was it called, Garnett Thor or whatever it was. Garnett, it was the tight end. What the hell was his name? He is now Hunter Hearst Houndsley. Help me out here.
I don't know what you said. Mark Andrews.
Mark Andrews. This is the same situation where Mark Andrews overtook Hayden Hurst, where Hayden Hurst was the first-round pick. Mark Andrews was the third. The third rounder ended up coming out. This is a little bit different, but Musgrove was the third-round pick. Kraft was the fourth or fifth-round pick. Kraft ends up being the better guy instead of Musgrove. But now, yeah, if he's out there, you got to pick him up, especially in this tight end landscape. It's so terrible. You're craving 8 to 10 fantasy points, and he's showing big playability, and you just want to link up with this Packers offense.
Back-to-back tight end one. Back-to-back. It's it. It's on time. This is a couple of years ago when the draft came through. It's a reason this doesn't sound dumb. It's gonna sound like but I literally had Kraft ranked ahead of Musgrave in Dynasty, and then when Musgrave got the draft capital, the dumbass staring at the screen right now pivoted, put Musgrave ahead of Kraft. Should have never done that, and the rest is history because we saw what Musgrave did. Musgrave's good. It's just that Kraft's a pure tight end. Kraft is he looks like some concoction of Kittle and Gronk, and he looks like a concoction of all these guys. And he goes to tight end university. He does all these things like he's a Kittle guy through and through. South Dakota State, like he's a grinder of all grinders. But that was the waiver wire. Let's get into this new segment brought to you by nobody, and it's awards. Do you want to be a sponsor? DM us at
hit us up.
Carpentier on social, at Matty Kiwoom on socials. Tap in, tune in. The Nathan Peterman Biggest Dud of the Week Award. The Nathan Peterman Biggest Dud of the Week Award is one of our 3 new awards, Matty Kiwoom. The way I define this one, and as we were texting today, thinking about this segment and how we would diagnose it and utilize it and attack it, I guess it's probably a better word than utilize it. I was trying to think of somebody that got an opportunity, shit their pants, pause, or just hasn't been able to do it, hasn't been able to show up. And I think in week 5, I don't know. I think it's Derek Carr. I think I don't want to call him Nathan Peterman, but I think as far as where this trajectory's gone from the first 2 weeks of seeing MVP Carr to that deep ball to Rashid Shaheed in the first half to just where this team is overall, I don't think there was a I guess you could say Brock Purdy or Aaron Rodgers could probably be in this conversation as well as having bad weeks, but I'm just going to take Derek Carr off the top rope because of how disappointed I am in what this New Orleans team has become. And we talked about the possibility of this happening with this New Orleans team falling apart and not being real through those first 2 games of high octane output and losing close games to the Eagles and Falcons. And now they lose to the Chiefs. And now they have home game against Buccaneers and the Broncos with no Derek Carr. And this is how that happens. This is how the downward spiral happens. Because then after that, you get 2 road games, coast to coast, right? And this is how it happens. And I would venture to bet right now that the Saints are probably done. I would feel pretty confident the Saints. And again, Derek Carr didn't throw 5 picks, but Derek Carr does not look like MVP Derek Carr. And I know we got hurt in this game, so maybe I'm jumping on him here, but not impressed.
Yeah, and now with the oblique injury, Spencer Rattler, the name's being thrown out there as a strong candidate to start in week 6. Feels like a bit of an icky situation for the Saints. I hope you sold high everywhere you could. Alvin Kamara, let's hopefully he can stand his value. My Nathan Peterman dud of the week is an easy one, a simple one, an obvious one. Dontavian Wicks. Dontavian Wicks with no Christian Watson, no Romeo Dubes. I had him inside my top 24 heading into Sunday, had big expectations. And what happened was I was duped by the week 4 touchdowns, Cody. I was duped because I saw the 25 fantasy points. I saw the wide receiver 3 finish. But you know what I didn't look at? The fact that he was targeted 13 times in catch-up mode and caught 5 footballs. 5. 200 air yards, but he only had 78 receiving yards. His hands are a problem. He just happened to catch the 2 touchdowns. And then this week, 7 targets, only 2 receptions for 20 yards. He has hand problems. The man's got 2 left feet for hands. He's not able to haul in the rock. And I should have known. I should have baked in more risk because it doesn't matter that he's had 20 targets, 20, Cody, over the last 2 weeks. He has 7 receptions for 98 yards. He doesn't even have 100 yards on 20 targets. That's not going to be reliable. That's going to leave the door wide open for Christian Watson, for Romeo Dubes to get in Jordan Love's good graces. And now with Tucker Kraft emerging as a no doubt weapon in that offense, the days of Dontavian Wicks being relied on is probably done for 2024. Could he have spike weeks? Of course. Of course. When you have Jordan Love, Matt LaFleur, there will be big time scoring games. And he'll get his. But in terms of me going, I got Dontavian Wicks in my lineup, baby. I'm good to go. No more. You can't fool me again. Fool me once. Shame on me. Fool me twice. I can't get fooled again. I'm not going to do it. I think it's a Tennessee proverb.
There it is. Can't disagree with it. Rising star of the week, the biggest bump in value, the biggest value boost, the rising star of the week is a guy that's kind of went like this the first 4 weeks. I got this guy's total in the offseason after I visited training camp, 5.5 receiving touchdowns. 4 targets, 9, 8. He is a developmental wide receiver, but he's a super dynamic one that had 17 touchdowns last year at LSU. Brian Thomas Jr. doubling down, giving you output and establishing himself as the number 1 wide receiver in Jacksonville. 5 for 122 and a touchdown. Brian Thomas Jr., rising star of the week.
Can't disagree with it. I actually had 2 rising stars, but I'm gonna go with just one. I'm not gonna say both. I'll say who my other one is, but I'm only gonna dive into one. I want to talk about Darnell Mooney. Darnell Mooney, 16 targets, 9 receptions, 105 yards, 2 touchdowns, 31.5 fantasy points. And now we've seen him after a dud in week 1. Wide receiver 18, wide receiver 27, wide receiver 49, and then wide receiver 3 last week. After just Jamar Chase and his teammate Drake London, I believe. We were told by Raheem Morris and Zach Robinson that they not only wanted Darnell Mooney to be a part of the offense, they wanted to utilize him in a big way. They continuously spoke about his ability to separate when they gave him as you know, as lucrative of a contract that any changing team free agent wide receiver received. And now we've seen him go every single game with 6+ targets except for week 1. 7, 8, 9, 16. Not only has Darnell Mooney arrived, not only is Darnell Mooney startable week in and week out, Darnell Mooney is now going to have to be ranked, I would say, on a weekly basis inside my top 30. Conservatively. Tampa Bay wasn't necessarily a Swiss cheese secondary heading into this contest, and they diced them up. There will be tough matchups, but then again, guess what? Guess who's still on the schedule 2 more times? Carolina. There are still some cupcakes to be had, big games for Darnell Mooney to be had, and if you can add him, of course you got to add him. And he's gone up so much in value to me, whether it be dynasty or seasonal. If someone in your league believes they're getting one over on you by selling high, I still might sit at the negotiation table and try to take a crack at it, because someone selling high still might not be getting enough for a player in this offense getting this type of target share.
He's I think Fizzle said it best this morning. He's Kirk Cousins is Jordan Addison. And that's
a good way to put it.
They are comps of each other, I think, in the same realm. That's kind of how I view both those guys. Let's move on. Actually, we got a super chat here from Patrick. Shout out to Patrick.
What up, baby? What up, Patrick?
Supers. Patrick for $2 says, just sent downs for Tank Bigsby. Have shit running backs. Thumbs up or thumbs down?
Patrick, you definitely overpaid, but guess what? We're in the fantasy trenches. You're looking at inflated running back prices all across the board. Yeah, we all want to make sure we get deals at running back. Guess what? That's magic. It's not in practice. It's all what we want to happen. It's not what happens. Fact of the matter is, Tank Bigsby just had 30 fantasy points, and he's a running back. He's going to cost a lot to get. Now, if this shoulder injury becomes worse for ETN, this is going to be a steal. And if Anthony Richardson comes back, this is going to be a steal. You have a lot of outs to feel really good about this trade. Yeah, on paper, it is an overpay, but guess what? Welcome to the fantasy trenches, Patrick. Good job. I don't hate it at all. If you have shit running backs, you got to take chances.
Welcome to real life.
Welcome to the cold splash of water in the face.
It's a running back. They cost money. Last award here, the Amari Dupe of the Week. Amari Cooper, Amari Dupe of the Week. This is built around a big performance that you can't trust, because the next week you might just get a good old goose egg dropped on your plate. The first name that comes to mind for me is Alec Pierce. Because when you look at the Indianapolis offense,
not a bad one.
Very boom bust as far as Alec Pierce goes and what he's done to this point in his career. Also taking into account running backs in this room. If Taylor comes back in a week, this week or the next, it becomes more run-centric. With Joe Flacco, the door is open for this downfield stuff. A lot of his downfield work came late in this game when it became needed, not because it was game planned in. The game planning surrounds around the better receivers, which is Michael Pittman, which is Josh Downs. We even saw Adonai Mitchell targeted a couple times. Granted, I wish Adonai Mitchell got more run in this offense. I wish he was more of a focal point. He had 7 targets, 4 for 38. The Adonai thing is interesting to me, but the efficiency at which Alec Pierce goes off at and then does nothing. So to this point this year, week 1, everybody remembers 3 for 125 and a touchdown, 556 and a touchdown, 1 for 44, 1 for 9, 3 for 34, and 3 for 134 and a touchdown. Up, down, up, down, up, down. This is the Amari Cooper thing. Last year, this is his 6-week span. 0-0, 1 for 21, 4 for 27, 3 for 100 and a touchdown, 2 for 22, 1 for 13, 3 for 30, 1 for 58 and a touchdown. Like, this is the definition of the Amari Dupe of the week for me. Do not get stuck on this big game for Alec Pierce. Again, we're playing with limited targets in a mediocre offense, an inefficient offense with weapons that are more focal points than is Alec Pierce.
I'm going to take a controversial take at this award because I'm going to have to predict the future for it to be true because I really like the player. But I think the Amari Cooper Dupe of the Week award for me goes to Garrett Wilson. 22 targets, 13 receptions, only 101 yards. And I know it's a good fantasy day because of PPR points and he gets the touchdown. But I mean, Devontae Adams is going to the Jets, right? Devontae Adams is going to the Jets. And I'm sorry, Devontae Adams going to the Jets is going to be murderous for Garrett Wilson's fantasy value. The true excitement about having Aaron Rodgers as number one guy is what we saw this past week with Garrett Wilson, where he just says, I don't give a fuck. I'm throwing it to this guy over and over. 4th and 1 from the 1. Yep, I'll throw it to Garrett Wilson. Oh, 4th and 1 from our own 49. I'm throwing it deep to Garrett Wilson. That's going to be Devontae Adams. 22 targets in the game. You're not going to see that anymore. You're going to see more of his week 2 performance with Devontae Adams around 6 targets, catches 4 of them, 57 air yards, 57 receiving yards, 10 fantasy points. That's the cold hard truth. And he's on bye, so I'm 100% right this weekend. You will not get a big fantasy performance. Oh, he's not on bye this weekend. They decided to not take his bye. That's right. They have Monday Night Football.
I told you you're going to forget about the London boys coming back.
That's right. They have a game on Monday. But yes, with Devontae Adams looming, I think this is the dupe of the week. I think this is the dupe of the week. In seasonal, I think now is the time to just start seeing how much you can get. See how high you can shoot for the stars. Could you get Cody? Could you get CeeDee Lamb for Garrett Wilson in seasonal?
Oh boy, that's actually that's a prospect. If you can get somebody to believe that, or somebody that's asleep at the wheel as far as the Devontae Adams thing goes.
And if you shoot high enough, guess what? Devontae Adams goes to the Ravens. No harm, no foul. You still got you got a stud.
Oh boy. All right, Matty, we're closing in on 9 Eastern, and we have yet to talk about the hurdle rating. The hurdle rating, which we brought back last week. We introduced it in week 5. We talk about the best teams in the league. And last week, our top 5 was Minnesota 1, Kansas City 2, tied with Detroit, Baltimore 4, and Houston 5. It's time to meet the week 6 hurdle rating. Where are we starting?
Let's start at the very top with our tier 1 ratings.
Stays the same.
Stays the same.
Kansas City got a bump, though, it looks like.
Kansas City did get a slight bump. It looks like you had them from 3 to 2. Was that the skinny? Because I've had them 1 both weeks.
So it looks like we both stayed Minnesota 2. You have Minnesota 2 both weeks. I have Minnesota 1. You have Kansas City 1 both weeks. I bumped Kansas City from 4 to 3. I bumped them ahead of I moved them from 4 to 3. So that means I put them ahead of my eyes are playing tricks on me. Baltimore. I bumped them ahead of Baltimore.
Yeah.
Even though Baltimore got the win against Cincinnati, that defense showed holes. And what we know about Kansas City's defense gets better as the season goes on. So Kansas City gets a touch bump, which puts them ahead of Detroit. Detroit, 2.5 here, puts them at number 3 overall. Again, bye week this week for the Vikings. Next week, the Vikings and the Lions will meet.
Yeah, there's really not a whole lot to add with the tier 1 teams. Minnesota took care of business. Chiefs took care of business. And I'm not going to drop Detroit because they were on bye. They've been so deadly this year, Cody. Do you know that every team that they've played lost the following week?
I saw that. They
video. Ain't got no kneecaps to play after a game. That's how tough Dan Campbell gets these boys to go. How hard that they go in the paint. They cause teams to have a layover, to have a down week the following week. And with that type of residual effects, I wasn't going to drop them at all.
I brought that up to Fizz this morning, and Fizz goes, so you're telling me my Cowboys are in trouble? because the Cowboys play the Lions this week.
Yeah.
And then he goes, but wait, they're on bye next week. So you think that's the curse breaker? Is that the Cowboys?
It's not a curse breaker. You can't count it because you have a whole week to heal up. It negates it.
All right. So the next time that this thing is going to come into effect is going to be Detroit at Minnesota. The following week, the Minnesota Vikings play a short week at the Rams. Chalk it up to a Rams dub.
Rams dub. That'll be
a fluke.
Cooper Kupp will be back.
October 8th.
Cooper might be back.
It's a fluke. So
right,
look
ahead
to the Colts.
Tier 2 comes in now.
Look at that. Look at that team. Look at the new entrant into tier number 2. A team that last week was they were actually ranked 11.5, which according to our rankings has them at 12 last week. Mm-hmm. You had them 12. I had them 11. The Washington Commanders enter tier 2. Baltimore and Houston stand pat. Baltimore stays 4, Houston 5, and Washington makes the big jump here up to number 6 in the hurdle ratings in week 6. Matty Kiwoom. This is a football team. It's an interesting football team, but I have to give them credit as much as I do the Vikings, and you know how hesitant I've been about the Vikings because of my lifelong PTSD. But when you do, I mean, I'm serious. When you look at this Commanders team, they've got fine wins. They absolutely blasted the Arizona Cardinals, who we think is a good team. They scored 38 on the Bengals. They scored 34 on Cleveland. This team is literally averaging 38 points a game the last 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
They play Baltimore, who just gave up 38 to the Bengals. They play the Panthers. They play the Bears. They play the Giants. They play the Steelers. This team has 10 wins in their range of outcomes. Are they really the 6th best team in football? We'll see. But right now, they're playing like it. And the reason I brought up the Vikings, and I will remind you of this, Matty Kiwoom, is I've lived through this. 2016, the Minnesota Vikings win, bye. Loss, win, loss, win, loss. 8-8.
You've seen it.
These things happen to the Minnesota Vikings. The Commanders, however, you have to take them serious. They have a quarterback. The quarterback, Jaden Daniels, right? This guy's playing at a different level. And this week, I think Fizz said he's going to try to go up to this game. Washington and Baltimore. This is the real deal Holyfield right here. Next week, we get a tier 1 matchup between the Vikings and Lions. This week, we get a tier 2 matchup between Baltimore and Washington. What do you think?
I think Washington deserves credit because they also didn't get sometimes the hurdle ranking could be a little bit cockamamie, right? We can agree to that where you have a team ranked way different than I do. So the average of it kind of sticks it there. No, I had them at 6, you had them at 8, a true ranking of a 7.0, which puts them right there in the mix. It makes them the 6th best team in our rankings. So really, to me, it just came down to this, the highest scoring team in the NFL, including their week 1 matchup. Their defense doesn't look good, but it does look game. It does look competent. It does look as if they will compete and allow that offense to grind out opposing teams. And what I find very interesting, very, very interesting, is the similarities with the Ravens. So the Ravens are the number 2 scoring team in the NFL. Commanders are number 1. The Ravens pass the ball 47.6% of the time. The Commanders, 46.5% of the time. Yards per play for the Ravens, 6.8. Yards per play for the Commanders, 6.3. And then you look at EPA per play. Okay, so that's expected points added per play. These are the best offenses in the NFL. The Washington Commanders, 0.21. The Baltimore Ravens, 0.16. The third place team, the Detroit Lions, 0.10. These two teams have put together a blueprint on how to just attack teams early, right? We saw this so far through the season. Last week was the first real week of arena football, of pass, scoring. We saw a lot of slow, running, methodic type game plans to start the season. And when you have a quarterback like Lamar and what is apparently his doppelganger, Jaden Daniels, you're able to construct these on-the-ground primary offenses that can also air it out. And then when you add in a guy like Jaden Daniels, that throw that he had to Dynasty Brown in the end zone was special. It was on the money. It was chef's kiss. And then you hear that he went to Cliff and said, put the ball in my hands. You want to win? Let Jaden spin. And he went out and did that. Like, he's special. Lamar's special. It's funny. They call them Heisman moments in college football. We don't get that in the NFL. But Jaden, that throw to Brown for the touchdown, and Lamar's stiff arm of Hendrickson to find Isaiah Likely were two competing MVP players, caliber players, putting in their MVP or their Heisman moment. And I cannot wait to watch that game this weekend. Fizz, you better go, brother. You better go, brother. And I am excited for a number of things this weekend, but two things at the top of the list. Three things. Trying the cold plunge. That's one. I'm excited to try the cold plunge. Two, the Red River rivalry. Very excited to be hanging out with you for that. And three, Lamar versus Jaden. Battle of, what is it, I-95? Isn't that the highway that separates them? I-95, I-195, 295, 4, whatever it is. I can't wait to watch it. Can't wait.
What happens to these MVP odds after this game? Lamar Jackson's currently second. Patrick Mahomes should not be number one in MVP odds right now, by the way. But he is. Lamar Jackson's number 2. Josh Allen's 3. Stroud's 4. Jaden Daniels 5 plus 1,000. If you believe Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders are going to win this game, I suggest jumping on that plus 1,000 and getting a little more what's left. It's crazy to think about MVP odds as a rookie, especially given what CJ Stroud did last year. But you truly, I mean, you're talking about a guy literally just won the Heisman because he lifted this team from the depths of, I know it's LSU, it's not really the depths of hell, but the depths of horrible defense to this Washington team, completely gluing it together. If this team wins 10, 11 games, you're going to be hard-pressed not to have this guy in the top 3 conversation for MVP. How Patrick Mahomes is playing right now. Josh Allen, I'm not sure what's happening with him. I'm not sure what's happening with Buffalo. I don't know about that whole situation. Stroud's not quite playing the same as he was last year. The door is wide open.
Yeah.
And Jaden Daniels v. Lamar Jackson, 2 guys competing for that MVP. Real shit. If Daniels beats him head up and, has a 350 total yard game, passing plus rushing, 4 touchdowns, I mean, we could be in for another good Sunday between, like we saw last week with Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson, but this time with Jaden Daniels. What do we got in tier 3?
Before we move on to tier 3, I just want to put out the sharp move. The sharp move to me is something that I will be doing. I'm going to sprinkle a little something on the futures of an MVP season from Lamar and Jaden, because whatever the odds are now, you could probably cut them in half for the victor of this matchup. If they both come out and play good, whoever wins, we're probably going to see a dramatic decrease in odds. You're going to lose a hell of a lot of juice. So I do a little something. But here we go. Moving on to team 3. And sorry, folks, the graphic isn't as clean as the first 2. I'm going to get it right. This is the first time doing graphics for it. But tier 2 and tier 3. Tier 3 is 4 teams here.
There it is. So we got Green Bay, who, let me see if I was trying to update my thing so it squeezed my picture in a little bit. Green Bay last week was our, 7th overall team. This week, they're our 7th overall team again. San Fran stays 8. Tampa Bay falls out of the top 10. Seattle falls out of the top 10. And the Eagles are now in here. They jump up off a bye. I'm interested to hear what Matty says. Matty moved them from 15 to 9. I had them at 9. I bumped them up to 7. So that's where the vault came from. And then Buffalo, who we both have sitting exactly at 10. Last week, Matty had 6. I had 7. So they have a fall. They fall right down to the bottom. They fall down to number 10 overall in the hurdle rating. Eagles take a jump up on bye. San Fran sitting here at 8. Seems like potentially the biggest. San Fran feels like a bigger fraud than Washington does right now.
Yeah, San Fran has some issues with McCaffrey out. They're just not able to be as dynamic as they are supposed to. And I just want to apologize real quick because there's just mistakes all over this son of a bitch. The Niners here had an 8.0 ranking tied with the Eagles. The Bills had a 10.0. So it's not a huge grouping of 7 and 8. It's 2 7s, 2 8s, and a 10. But the order is correct, so we'll talk about it that way. But for me, the Niners, at some point, they are going to hit a wall. It might be this year. 2 and 3, horrible losses. That you might, I think you're right. I think they went face first into the wall. I mean, that was a bad loss to the Rams. I don't care what the coaching staff is for the Rams. I don't care about the rivalry, yada, yada, yada. That was a bad, bad loss. And then last week to get boat raced by Kyler Murray and the Cardinals. I know trap game, it happens to them all. But to get stymied by that defense like they were, the Cardinals defense is not that good. And to just be kind of stuck in the mud, it's one of those things where it's like, man, maybe Christian McCaffrey does make a huge difference. And I don't know if Christian McCaffrey is ever going to really be 100. I don't know if he's going to be 80% at any point this year. So I don't know if they're frauds quite yet, but they're hovering with it. And I would say this. I think the argument could be made that Green Bay should be in tier 2, and the San Francisco 49ers, the Eagles, and the Buffalo Bills are the best of the potential frauds.
I don't think that's wrong. I just don't. Part of me, I still don't believe. I mean, I have the Niners at 9. You have them at 7. So you're a touch higher than I. When you look at their schedule, Matty, at Seattle on Thursday night, they've already lost to the Rams. They've already lost to the Cardinals. At the Seattle Seahawks on Thursday night this week.
It's a big game. It's a big game. They do not want to be 0-3 in the division.
And they also don't want to be 2-4 going home to play Kansas City.
Right.
And then the next week playing Dallas on Sunday Night Football.
Well, they have a history of kicking the shit out of Dak Prescott and the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football.
True.
That will probably be the get-right game. I could see them struggling, win or lose, but struggling on Thursday night. I think they're going to get the shit kicked out of them against the Chiefs. Andy Reid coming off a bye is always dangerous. And then I think the get-right game for the Niners is the same get-right game that they've had over the last couple of years. Dak Prescott, Dallas Cowboys, Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football, whatever it is, prime time matchup. They just boat race and kick the dog shit out of the Cowboys. That's a tradition like none other. So I think that's the get-right game. But, I mean, we were going to do 2 hurdle ratings before then, Cody. How low could they go with back-to-back losses? I think they could fall out of tier 3 altogether. No doubt.
1,000%. 1,000%. If they lose
this week, how far are they dropping for you? Ballpark.
Below Buffalo, below Tampa, below Seattle, so probably 13, right with Dallas. For me,
let's say the Broncos handle business against the Chargers, and the 49ers get beat on Thursday night. You this week have the Denver Broncos at 17, the San Francisco 49ers at 9. How close does that gap get next week?
Denver's probably 15, maybe 14, depending on what Pittsburgh looks like. And then San Fran's 13. It sounds stupid.
But that's where we're at. I know people want to poo-poo the Denver Broncos, but they have one of the best defenses in the NFL, a decent offensive line. And don't look now, but Bo Nix last week had the quietest quarterback 1 type of week. 3 touchdowns, 1 on the ground. Should have had a deep touchdown to shit for brains Troy Franklin, who dropped his first ever touchdown like exactly like we thought he would.
Speaking of developmental.
Yeah, but this is I like the rankings where they're at now. Any team you want to talk about that didn't make the top 3 tiers that you want to bring up briefly?
Not really. I mean, you just kind of did. You kind of brought up the Denver Broncos. I think that's interesting. Arizona, I had them in here late. I think they're a top 20 team. Bengals have a bad defense. The Falcons, I think, are fake. The Bears, I think, are fake. New Orleans is obviously fake. The Rams, I don't think have enough gas. The Denver's like the line for me. Like I said, I have Arizona 16, Denver 17. I still think there's hope for Denver to continually build this thing. I don't know I don't know where to put the ceiling at for a rookie quarterback with Sean Payton in a defense like this that's improving. I don't know where to put the ceiling at, but teams like the Bears, the Falcons, the Cincinnati Bengals, New Orleans, the Rams, I'm pretty much content writing them off after week 5.
When the hell did the AFC West become the Big Ten? Just defensive locked-in teams, good offensive lines. Let's win 17-10 in a cloud of dust. When the hell did the AFC West become the Big Ten?
This year. Point blank, period.
Yeah.
All right, Matty, that's the show. That's the Hurdle episode 97. We get you guys an hour tonight. Doesn't happen all the time. We're adjusting the show. We're trying new segments here, and it drug us out a little bit longer. But there's only one way that you can finish on a reminder that the biggest game of the weekend is, as who's in the chat saying, golly, I can't remember. Sorry, I'm belting your name because I don't have the screen up. Seth Gordon, the Battle of the Beltway. The Battle of the Beltway is the game between the Baltimore Ravens and the Washington Commanders. There's only one way you can go out. Matty Kiwoom.
Dude, I watched this movie the other day. There's a non-zero chance that I watched this movie on the flight to Charleston. It's a great plane movie. Friday Night Lights is the best, one of the best flight movies. Keeps you locked in. The only thing is, when Boobie Miles gets in the car, what I'm about to do now? You said we were going to go to the pros. Yeah, when you're in altitude, that'll get you choked up, my boy.
Don't worry about it, Coach. Let me spit. Let me spit, Coach. Y'all want to win? Put Boobie in. Y'all want to win? Put Boobie in. I'm about to spit. Come on, Coach. Come on, Coach. Let me get this for you.
That's so depressing.
Way to wrap it up, Cody. Applaud to you. Let's get out of here.
We appreciate you guys. We love you. Stay tuned in, stay tapped in. Click that like button, and we'll see you potentially on an emergency episode at the end of the week. You never know. Click that like button. Click the thumbs up. Click the bell. Turn it on. Tune in. That's enough of that. Deuce.